Hello out there and welcome to the Stupidest Nerds, episode 7. I actually checked this time before we started and I heard Mark point to me, so that means we're ready to go. That joke will only make sense to us three. I'm Mike.
Jeff.
I'm Mark.
And we're here. It's been a while. It's been a while. How has everyone been doing?
Doing all right.
Yeah?
Can't complain.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Good work, everyone.
All right. That's the podcast.
All right. See you later. See you next week.
Thanks for stopping by. Just kidding. We've got some things to talk about. We actually, researched some topics. We researched them enough to say.
We looked them up in the last half hour.
They're on the internet. We know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, we've got a very, I think this is a very diverse episode we have here. We're not heavily loaded in one thing. We got some comic book stuff. We got some computers. Wow.
Some computer stuff.
Star Wars stuff.
Some internet stuff.
VR.
Computers, guys. It's the future. We're going to talk about the internet. And it's called Internet. That's also a Canadian joke. Anyone remembers the Peter Mansbridge special on Internet? It was breathtaking.
Way back.
So yeah, do we want to jump right into topic one, I guess? Topic one. So this has kind of been, I think we've hand-wavingly mentioned digital security before in other episodes, or at least talked around some of the other things that are important about digital security. But CGP Gray. Thank you. It's 2 minutes. You put 3 letters and I'm done.
3 letters, then a word.
Oh my God. He put out a video that kind of is a very good summary to the recent escapades of digital security. And it really, I guess it hasn't been a big focus in Canadian news necessarily, but it's with the...
Well, it affects us as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, really, Canadian news is just American news with gentler people.
We're nicer on the air.
We just apologize after it.
Sorry, but this just happened.
Sorry, but here's the news. But yeah, so with the terrorist attacks, there's been a pressure to unlock this iPhone and find out all of the secrets because it could potentially or not help prevent future attacks. And that's led to a more general topic about, what security is important. What kind of rules do we need to have around it? And this video was very clearly giving the case that digital security is nothing like the security we think of at our home.
Yeah. Well, it was a 2-part video.
Yep.
Right. The first one kind of just laid out what digital security really is, I think. And I think he laid it out quite well, like the digital security versus real life security. And in particular, the
physicality of
the legal ramifications of not giving the government access to something like a phone, a digital device, versus the government technically legally being able to kick down your door if they deem it necessary, and how that can open up to a pretty slippery slope if they were to gain access.
And I mean, the whole it's basically born from this FBI case with the iPhone.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's smart for them to allow the FBI to have a backdoor, which would then be in existence forever and be a tool that anybody with a nefarious cause could possibly gain hold of, and
it would,
bad stuff.
Yeah, guaranteed it would open up to anyone who with a few hours to spend to crack it.
So I guess my issue or my thoughts on it is it seems a little disingenuous to talk about it like that, breaking through either your computer or your own whatever digital device. I mean, phone is the most obvious one, but there would be others for sure. Isn't already at least in some level possible. I think previous to this, Edward Snowden and other other huge information dumps have showed that clearly digital communication, at least what is going out there, is not private at all. There's some way for governments to access it.
I think the difference was, you mean the government's ability to access? I get you. I thought you were talking about the leaks that happened, because those were leaks or hacks that
But even a hack
at least-
would essentially someone going to get that information. It means that information is not as secure as you believe.
That's fair.
And
yeah.
I guess the difference, specifically would be that information was information that was sent out.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't sent out to the NSA or it was intercepted.
Yeah.
But I guess this kind of takes that one step further, and the information you hold on your phone.
Yeah.
Isn't being sent. But even that information, like, we were talking the other day about how I Googled a store and it told me like what times we're busy. And I'm like, how the hell does Google know? And you're like, Google, it tracks like how many people are in there with your phone. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and it makes sense. And then you think about it more. It's like, that's not information that I consciously, at some point I would have said, yeah, sure. Google.
Yeah, technically you said yes to this,
but it's not, but you think about it later and you're like, I don't remember doing that.
Or the ramifications of allowing them to do that.
Exactly. So I think that there is some sort of difference between like the information you would keep in a safe, I guess, to go back to his example or what have you, versus what gets kept on a phone. Like I'm not convinced that everything that you put on your phone, I guess, is private in the same way.
That's fair. I think though, and CGP makes the case as well, is that it's not so much just getting access to your phone for this case. It's if we set a precedent now, what does that mean for the future, for the devices that we have yet to create or even dream up?
In his example, it's an idea that someday down the road, you're going to have a chip in your head that is going to be able to do everything, if not more, than what you have in your hand in a phone, right? So that's
right. But we don't even need to make the case on something that extreme. You can make an argument, and there are plenty of people that have been out there for like anything that's on the connected web, like the Internet of Things, any machine-to-machine network. The security is like next to non-existent on these things, and they're controlling how cities run. So
yeah, like the Internet of Things is like these like internet connected light bulbs or internet connected locks, that sort of stuff.
So that's the home. But cities use them to like manage transit or manage, stop sign and like, or a stoplight. Yeah. A stop sign would be, an impressive.
If they can get that technology, that's what we want them to have, is the stop sign technology.
That's it. I want to never wait. So if digital security means I can have an app that never have to wait for a stop sign.
All the power to you, Mike. All the power to you.
That's it.
Do that.
I'm done. I'm leaving this podcast, guys. I'm gonna start right away. I don't know. It's because I understand and I get the need, and I think there's got to be some sort of reasonable case, and I think there is, and I that's the struggle. There's a case where you can put forward that everyone would be like, yeah, you should have access to this person's information. It's going to save lives or stop. But then how do you decide that? And then
and once it's decided, where does it stop?
It does. And that's it. So you have to be worried about that. And I think he was reluctant to give that argument on the second part of the video, to point out that that's not like a slippery slope. It's not like, if we do this one thing and then it's going to be in the hand. No, it's a legal issue, because if we build a set of laws, then you have to live with the things that get built around laws. They're not a freestanding thing. Laws get interpreted and built upon and taken down. So you need to have a structure that's solid before you go anywhere with it, and we don't. And I don't know.
And the government's always behind the technology curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well. Government has to be, though. Think about it.
We all are, really.
It's especially in government, you want stuff to work. Okay, so government should never be on the bleeding edge when you're going to get blue screens of death every day because someone just put a patch up for the new
but even
software.
In just their
you know what I mean?
Understanding of the technology or what's to come, not even necessarily the implementation of it. Just
that's because we have lawyers that are the primary source of laws rather than engineers and scientists.
But even engineers and scientists, not all the time are those the people that operate all of the gear that has to be out there.
No, so, but we just, I guess meant sort of more offhandedly that we don't value that kind of knowledge for running governments when I think it should. It has a place. Not saying that lawyers don't, and these people do. And it's more just we don't ever seem to give anyone else a chance, I guess. But to be fair, we've had doctors run this province and they're shit. So,
so pulling it back, I think that the idea behind, people need to know how to get into this stuff, but ultimately, maybe the reason behind those systems that aren't seriously protected, having all of those passwords and encrypted or whatever, is because the practicality dictates that if you have all of those things and someone dies or someone forgets their password and doesn't have it, you know what I mean? Like, that can severely limit what's going on. Hence, not being on the bleeding edge of technology all the time, because it just is a practical matter.
And I think it's the one thing about this that I think is more important is that more people should be engaged with this conversation than are currently. Like, it's right now, it's very popular in like the tech sphere, and that, you know,
it seems to be strictly
and everyone else kind of push, oh, well, that's a nerd conversation. We don't understand security. It's like, well, there's lots of things we don't understand, but feel okay to comment on.
And people are in denial about what they really put on their phones or what they really use their devices for.
Oh yeah.
People are in major denial about that and how important it is to their everyday life.
You like this one?
That's a brilliant idea.
I saw that. I'm like, Mike and Jeff are gonna love this.
Yeah, that's great. That is great.
Oh man.
So moving on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a story about passwords, but I feel like it's not appropriate.
Probably not.
No. So we're just gonna leave it at that.
So, in our previous episode, you guys, we were doing a comic book club about Saga.
Saga, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And I love it. It's great. And I was trying to reciprocate with something that I've recently been, exposed to. And by the way, taking a second here to give a shout out to Devon CM. I'll try and put his Twitch Twitch channel in the description below.
We are cutting edge technology experts here.
He helped me try and improve some of the sound here. So if it sounds a little better, it's him. If it sounds worse, it's because of me.
I always like having new things, even if they're mic stands. And plus, and we already talked about this, I can look over at Jeff so I don't yell into the microphone.
Yeah.
Which I probably do a lot.
It's nice.
Mark fixes it in post. It's fine. It doesn't bother me at all.
Anyway, he this Devon CM dude, very much appreciated.
Thanks.
He's an audiophile and he helps another group called Kinda Funny. There's some IGN guys who quit their IGN jobs and went on their own. They recently had a Max Landis on their program, and he's the writer behind this new Superman series. And I watched their piece on this and like, wow, okay, I'll give that a try. And it's really, really good thus far. Not to say that it's a 7-part series. I've only got into 5, but not to say that the rest won't be. Basically, it's a Nolan-esque version of Superman. You know what I mean? It's kind of bringing them back down, grounding the character a little bit more. It's a bunch of snippets in time as he's growing older. So the first one starts when he's about 9, learning about how he's going to fly. The second one is like, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years later, where he's trying to help the local police in a murder investigation, and some really weird shit happens. Third one, he's mistaken for Bruce Wayne and ends up on Bruce Wayne's yacht. It's like there's some really cool stuff that goes on in
happens
this.
To me all the time.
Well, it's the beard.
It's certainly not the hair.
Anyway, I just found that, especially with Batman versus Superman, all of the, I guess, bite back that's been coming from that. all of the idea that Superman is like one of those hard characters to really get well done in this whole universe. This is a good version of it. With this guy, he's like a god among men, right? But when you come down to it, when you boil the character down to its basic idea, he's just a kid who wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All the time. And it's hard to show that when he has all these godlike powers. You know what I mean? If he can lift up the building and shake out all the bad guys, it just seems to take away from, what's the word? The pathos of the story. Yeah. And I thought that this was an interesting sort of take on it. So I know I brought an episode. You guys flipped through an issue or two. What you think?
A couple issues, and I mean, I like the I like the art direction for it. Seems to really fit the feel that they're going for. But as far as like the story goes, from what I read, very interesting, and they're really focusing on Clark's story, which is great. That's the story that, at the very least, we haven't heard in a very long time, from what I've seen, anyways. So yeah, I would say it's pretty solid so far, and I'm kind of tired of like the God Superman. I'm kind of tired of that. I want to see, and it's something that's kind of for DC for a little while. Is it's always about these superpowered people who can do no wrong and have no real issues, have no real concerns, have no anxieties. And this seems to be taking it in a different direction and showing some of the vulnerabilities. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, I'd have to say I agree. I mean, I am very much not a Superman reader of any sort, so I can't really ground it in any sort of previous thing. But as the kind of like casual observer to it, I would say the same thing. Like the big thing that really kind of dissuades me from reading about it is I'm just not interested in that story. And that's most of my comic reading. In fact, I would say would be not of the superhero genre, just because I just don't find that compelling, and whether it's coming from DC or Marvel. But I think Superman is probably the epitome of the like unfallible character. So this is cool. Like, it definitely would get me to read through it. I'm not sure, I don't know if it would be one of those things that I would ever go back to. Like, there are series that I would go back to and reread. I think I'd be interested to read it once and be, it would be a good read. But I don't know if it would have the same staying power for me. But I would say that's more so just a general, my thoughts on comics. I tend to not gravitate to those kind.
Right.
But I definitely the thing that would make me read it is exactly what you said. It's grounded. It's a more realistic depiction of what being Superman would be like in our times. We're not idolizing everything. This is the real world. This is how it is, and this is how Superman needs to justify himself. And I think that's worth a read for sure. It's
the other thing, the art style. He's got a couple of different artists on different issues.
Oh, I see.
But it does typically have that sort of. I found it closer to more of a Batman the animated series or the Superman animated series in the first couple. Like, yes, there's a lot of that if you feel around for it.
It seemed just kind of a little lighter, I want to say, but not
clean.
Yeah, not clean. Yeah.
Second issue especially is not nearly that clean.
Yeah, that was kind of where I flipped through. I would say we got halfway through that, and yeah, you definitely get that.
And kind of like real, like, so
a lived in world. That's
like
little
what you would picture like small town America to look like. Yeah.
Kind of spoilers out there too. I mean, in the second issue, he gets shot in the face and it breaks his, what is this called? Like the orbital bone or whatever. Yeah. So he's bleeding in that. And he in the third episode, he is exposed to this neurotoxin and it makes him really drunk. So it's like
that's That's great. That's really good stuff right there. Then that's the type of stuff we haven't seen in quite some time. So that's really, really interesting take. I'll have to check out the rest of that.
Yeah, there's some good moments. Like him, look for him yelling at the stars. Look for him, the excited kid at the end of the first episode.
I think it was a really good grounding for the first one too. Like when he realizes the kind of capacity he has, and he just like he gets that like kid excitement, like you would when you figure out you can ride a bike and you think you can go so far, you could bike forever kind of thing, right? Like that's pretty cool. Like I think it makes it a lot more relatable for sure.
And it's something, it's going to lead into the next topic too, but it's something that's been missing, at least for what I've been reading. And I'm sure there's tons of stuff out there that if you're watching this and be like, my God, haven't you read this or that? Please post it in the comments. But the idea here is that, we're not seeing, like, even in Smallville, Superman was not as grounded as what he probably should have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Smallville's probably the closest that this has ever gotten to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm just trying to write out the time a little bit more here because we are all pretty much on the same place. And I think you'll like the graphics.
Check it out. Yeah. Check it out. That's the recommendation. Check it out.
Superman American Alien is the name of the series.
Yeah.
And, it's available on iTunes for sure because that's where I got it.
Cool.
How do you? I guess a quick aside. Do you prefer reading digital to print?
I would prefer to be able to get over to a place like Cape and Cowl in Lower Sackville, but it's just I never have the time. That's the problem. Like it's just a little far out for my ability to drive out there. You know what I mean? But yeah, and that's what I would like to do is be able to stop down. I work downtown, so I should go over to Strange Adventures a lot more, but hence.
But then you got to walk up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
The hill in Halifax sucks.
What can you do?
It's always fine to go down. It's coming up. It sucks.
Here you go. You like this one?
Terrible.
It's true though. It's so true.
Oh man.
Because what else are they going to talk about in the Batmobile?
I guess.
All right, moving on.
Why does Superman even go in the Batmobile? Fuck that. He's Superman. Just
he's got to talk to him somewhere.
No, man, I wouldn't talk to Batman. He's a jerk.
So further to this, I brought up the question in our little email blasts. What in today's movies and especially series, a lot of comic books and a lot of like books are being made into these TV and movies.
Yep, because we're super lazy.
Yep. And they want stuff that's guaranteed to work.
Yep.
Because it's based on a very popular property, should that popular property be adhered to as gospel? Should people stay closely to the source material? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely not. 100% no. Because it's different medium. So, actually going back to Saga, it was one of the things is everyone was, it's a very popular series and they've come up to Brian K. Vaughan and said, are you going to make this television series, movie? Like who's going to do that? And it's like, no, this is a comic. This is how it exists. I have no plans to adapt it because this is the story I want to tell. So that being said, I don't think there's a problem adapting material to a different medium because obviously there's lots of great examples where that's worked out very well. But you have to understand the differences between them. And that's why it shouldn't be held as gospel to what needs to happen. If a certain person's abilities need to be exaggerated or diminished in some sort of way to make sense in the story they're trying to tell, so be it. It's more important that the end product is cohesive and of good quality for that medium than adhering to all of the standards of the other. So if things get missed, I mean, like Harry Potter, for example, like there's a great series of films for great books. Both of them independently are great examples of their medium. The differences between the two are numerous. And if you had to make the book into a movie while being 100% faithful to the source material, I don't think it works.
I am of the opinion that I think the opposite a little bit. I think the idea behind funding for a lot of these properties comes from the established audience that is already there. So the idea is you're trying to appease the folks who have already read this. Essentially, you want those butts in the chairs to see this, either in the theater or in their living rooms. And I think the more that you mess with something, the more that you change it in. Now, I'm not saying that I am a capable writer myself or anything like that, but the more a writer takes liberties here and there, changes spoilers for the first season of Walking Dead, changes a Sophia death over a Carol death, right? Those things, they anger or they change perspective for your audience. Now, in the Walking Dead's case, I think it's only expanded the audience. But I look at some movies, like you look at Fantastic Four, the reboot that just came out, and I mean, people were just going apeshit over all of the different changes that happened in that film. Now, mind you, I have no problem with doing like what's the word? Doing a character shift for Johnny Storm now being black as opposed to white. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is they go to another dimension as opposed to in space to get their powers. They, you know what I mean? Like, some things irk me enough to not make me want to sit there and watch it anymore. So at what point does changing what you've read to what you see really detract from what you're watching?
See, I guess I understand it to a point, but I feel like it gets near like ridiculous fanboyism to like the extent that some people take it. And I guess that's really, it's not so much an issue of what works versus, well, I guess the issue is not staying 100% true to form, but understanding the power of adaptation, like what things don't work in your medium. If you have a book or a comic that spends great deals of time creating this backstory, time is of the essence in a movie. You don't have the same time to establish, and there's all sorts of different tricks of the trade for shaving time in establishing shots or things like that in film that you need to use that will change how it's presented from the original source. And I think I understand what you mean. And I guess there are things that are important to preserve, but it's hard to identify what is important. And I think that's the job. Like, there is a huge difference between someone that's talented at adapting and someone that is not.
I think the best way of doing this is, okay, you have one property. It takes the characters from A to B. Start your movie going from B to C. You know what I mean? So it's almost like walking into the theater. Here you go. Here's the issue that will bring you up to speed on where things are. Because you have the issue in hand, you don't need to sit through all of the character development into a backstory or into an origin or something like that. That is what I think. I also think, and I'm not going to be popular for this opinion, I also think that people do want to see it as it is on the page. I think that the audience...
I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think that might be an unpopular opinion among purists and among like original, but especially when you're going to a movie, like I guess it would be different to, a comic to a book that would have its own, and I really can't think of an example that I could point to of one for something like that. However, going to film is incredibly different, and what an average person seeing a movie, whether they understand anything about the backstory or not, wants to see is very different than what might actually be presented in that story. And you have to respect that to make it a film worth seeing first.
You're awful quiet on this, Jeff.
I've been processing. So, first off, I think an audience, think they know what they want to see. But that doesn't always work out for them. They say, oh, it should be like this. But the medium, in Mike's case, doesn't allow for it, or it just doesn't make sense, or isn't practical for telling the story in, whether it's a certain amount of time or in this type of format. You can't always go off of what the fans want. You can't. But you have to have that feeling. It has to feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, then it's going to be wrong right away. It's just, what is that feeling? You know what I mean? Like, how do we zero in on that? That's the tough part, really. Marvel started their cinematic universe with Iron Man. We all watched that and said, God damn it, that feels right. That was it.
Right.
We didn't say, well, his origins weren't quite right. The Mark 1 actually has a blaster on the left arm as opposed to the right. We didn't go through that. We watched it.
Damn it. Now I wish we had of though. That
and we said, holy shit, that felt right. Robert Downey Jr. Had his take on Tony Stark. It just felt right. Was it 100% correct to what Tony Stark was at the time, or maybe throughout the existence up to that point? No, not 100%, but it felt right. They analyzed the source material, and then they said, okay, I think we got a feeling for this. This is what we're going to do with it. But the other thing is that when you're doing like a film property or TV series, you can't give the audience homework. You can't say, hey, read issues 1 through 50 and then tune in. That's not fair because the audience is different, right? The expectations are different. What it has to live up to is different. I haven't read the meme yet.
It's good.
So I'm somewhat on the fence. I am leaning more towards you can't fully honor the source material. You have to have the space to take liberties, but you have to be knowledgeable. You have to do your homework. You have to know where this character is coming from. You have to know why fans and people love this character. And then you really, really have to think about how you're going to translate this character to film and how you're going to translate a particular story as well. Not just the character, but particular storylines and side characters into the story and into the medium. And I find like that's also a space where they go wrong.
Yeah. And I guess I think we're going to go a little bit longer in this, but now you have time to read the meme and it's good. But I guess I would agree with Mark that I think not all changes are equal. Making a change to, let's say, exclude a certain character because you're focusing on this part of the story as opposed to this other thing. Well, it can feel like it's not doing the story a full service. It does the film a better service because then there might be not only like the inclusion of this character, but then another 20 minutes of story that has to go along to justify them. So I think, cutting characters or cutting certain scenes or even replacing them to modernize them, sure, those changes can make sense, but it's finding the right mix of that. And I think that's why it's, like I said, it's more important that the adaptation is good than strict adherence. I'm much more willing to give someone liberties to adapt if they can present that cohesive version that's appropriate to the medium than to, include everything just because they're, it's a fan service kind of thing. And some people are good at it. Like obviously, Nolan's take on Batman is fantastic. I would say most people would have no issue with, Lord of the Rings, which is a huge volume of material that have to,
but Lord of the Rings for the most part felt right,
and that's yeah.
But The Hobbit did not
terrible,
right? Because they didn't
and arguably
honor the source material enough.
Arguably included, and that's the issue. Included way more in a story. Like you could have told that story.
The beauty of The Hobbit is its conciseness.
Yeah,
100%. They got very far away from that. Not even, it wasn't necessarily the story details. It was just it being concise, and it
was old Legolas, wasn't it? It weirded you out.
It was weird.
I think we can pretty much cover it.
I'd say so. I would say so.
Good.
And Gene Wilder agrees.
He always does.
Okay.
Eventually.
Moving on.
So, new Star Wars trailer. That's not episode 8?
Yeah.
So this is Rogue One, a Star Wars story or Star Wars tale or something like that.
So before we get too far into this, I was under the impression that like they've already agreed to like 6 Star Wars movies. 3 are going to be the story, and then there's going to be 3 like this that are.
There's going to be a Han Solo story. There's going to be this one, and I think they may even do something about Boba Fett.
There's a rumor.
So how do they do a Han Solo story when he's old?
No. Do a young.
So we're getting a new Han Solo.
Yeah,
nice.
That's a topic in and of itself too.
Yeah, we may even get a Ben Kenobi.
I can already see
Ben Kenobi story.
The hate bubbles rising from Mark's head.
Well, they just got to pick the right guy.
That's fair. It's a pretty difficult casting.
So what I saw in that trailer for Rogue One, and I thought it was Star Wars a Rogue One story, or Rogue One a Star Wars story,
something like that,
something along those. I saw a lot of the original trilogy in that story, in that trailer, and I liked it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the point of this story is to explain how they came upon the Death Star plans, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, obviously it's going to have quite a bit of lead in eventually to like, and a lot of those like shitty things I hate about new movies are look at this. We're going to tell you that story that you already know about, like those kind of, but I don't know. I trust that this one looks a little grittier and darker than a standard Star Wars. Do you guys get that at all from the trailer?
I don't get gritty. Maybe darker.
I get like I think maybe gritty in the sense that we might get a bit of like a bit of a war story, where the cast isn't all going to make it, and not just like the side characters. Like we're going to get to know some of these folks through the course of the the film, and they're not all going to make it through it.
Like Armageddon. Cinematic masterpiece,
like
Armageddon.
Just like that. I'm
sorry,
but I like the feel, like the direction. There's some people taking issue with another female lead.
Yeah, can we just quickly talk about this and how I think it's who cares?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think the main concern is that we may get another Mary Sue. Because Rey was a Mary Sue. She was basically infallible and could do everything and had the solution to everything and basically couldn't lose.
But I don't get that. At least from the trailer, they make it look like she comes from a sordid past of sorts.
But that doesn't necessarily not make her a Mary
sordid
Sue,
past from whose point of view?
I guess.
Yeah. Because I think it's going to come from the Empire's point of view, not the Rebellion's, right? Yeah. Although I was looking at a few sites' examination of the trailer, and the Mon Mothma casting is on point because that looks that character looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing it up here. We've got Felicity Jones in the title in the lead role. We've got Diego Luna, Donnie Yen. And then Mads
Mikkelsen or something like that.
He's the bad guy from Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And then Forrest Whitaker. And
oh yeah, Lazy
Tydiuk?
Eye Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker is weird in this too, like in the trailer.
He's weird in general. He's got that one eye that just doesn't work. It's like the weirdest thing. Like I've never seen, like, you know, from an industry that's built on perfection, and then Forrest Whitaker just shows up and like, what are you doing here? Like you're just eye doesn't work. You kind of look lost.
I'm excited. I think it looks really good.
Yeah,
from what I've seen, the feel, feel Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels Episode 4. You know what I mean? So I'm stoked. I think actually they may be shooting themselves in the foot, because this will probably do better than what
I don't know if it'll do better as far as box office, but like critically, it's already looking better. And I loved episode
and this is
7.
I kind of like, I don't understand that, I guess, from the sense that, like, do people really, I mean, I know there's obviously people that differentiate between the canon story and versus this is a side thing, but are they really going to be that upset that like new Star Wars IP is out there and they don't want to see it?
As long as it's good, I don't think anyone's going to care. Until they get burnt out on it.
The Star Wars name alone, I think it's still like, it holds so much power that like most people that go into it are not going to be like, oh, this isn't, you know, they'll understand, I guess, in the first few minutes that it's not part, but aren't going to be upset or have any sort of feelings either way about that.
Be upset that it's not continuing. No. It's not episode 8.
Plus, in the way I look at it, it's just I'm getting more Star Wars for my
I think,
but it needs to be good though. It needs to be good. If it's not good, then it's immediately going to get construed as a money grab. So
but it's
these
Disney.
Side stories
that wouldn't
don't
be like
work.
Disney to like.
Disney wouldn't exploit anybody.
No history of ever doing that.
It needs to be good.
They have $4 billion they have to earn back. Just let me tell you. So
I'm sure they'll make it back.
Well, episode 7's got to be in the $1 billion range by now worldwide.
I don't doubt it, but
I mean, it's probably more so like all the stuff that goes with it than the movie. The movie is just a vehicle to like toys, sell
comics,
you shit.
All that stuff. Oh yeah, for sure.
But
2-hour commercial.
So we have seen Vader. Vader is going to be in this again.
See, well, there was some some buzz because there's that stupid internet theory that I actually think makes the original the new, I don't know what you call it, the first 3 episodes less shitty, in that Jar Jar Binks theory that he's secretly the Sith mastermind behind the whole movies. And people are saying, wouldn't it be awesome if Jar Jar Binks is in this? Which I think is like the most about chain around on anything ever.
You know what? They might as well do it.
They should.
They might as well.
Yeah,
I hope they kill him. Like in the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, that's where he's going to die.
Yeah,
but
they might as well. But like, why not?
This has been like a huge. Have you read this? Like, there have been like entire.
No, I don't know anything.
Oh man, I'm gonna send you some videos because some like they're ridiculous. Like how they analyze the whole movie and like that's why the original trilogy. Well, the first, I don't know what to call it. The first 3 episodes.
The prequel trilogy.
Prequel, but it's in the middle. It doesn't make. Fuck it. Whatever.
That's why it's called a prequel.
It doesn't. It's bullshit. Anyway, that's why those movies flopped, is because Jar Jar Binks was meant to be like the ultimate badass, and because he was so poorly received in the first episode that they changed everything. It's incredible. It changes your entire perspective.
That he's like movies. A Sith or something like.
They might as well.
I think it'd be great. Fuck Vader. Bring more Jar Jar.
Why
not? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe we'll spend. I think we'll watch these videos. That'll be a topic for our next podcast. Sure. Is the unappreciated genius of Jar Jar Binks.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I like it.
It makes. I'm serious. It makes the whole movies better, and you're almost disappointed with not with just the prequel trilogy I got at the time in general, but more so that they didn't. That it could have been fantastic if this idea like went to a potential full fruition. So anyway, Jar Jar Binks for Rogue One.
Jar Jar Binks for Rogue One. Yeah. So I like the fact that we'll still have Vader sort of back in his prime of evil Vader. I think that'll be That'll
And you
be
really
cool.
can't tell the story of the Death Star without Vader. Like, can that
No.
And
really
friggin'
be
Tarkin,
done?
like
Yeah.
Grand Moff Tarkin will be in
Yeah.
this too. That'll be great.
And there's who's playing the blind Jedi? Like that scene looked really cool. It looks like they're gonna have a few different
Was that guy
styles and approaches to each of the characters.
like Donnie Yen? I think.
Is that who Donnie Yen is playing?
I think.
That makes actually a lot of sense. Actually, now that I think about the scene, yeah. So I think it's going to be solid. I think it's going to give us a bit of a different take. That's not necessarily a blockbuster take on Star Wars, but we'll still do blockbuster.
And I think it's good to see some live, because a lot of the tangential Star Wars content has been coming like from animated, like the Clone Wars, like, and I think Rebels is the newer one now, and it's also being pretty, like, I haven't seen Rebels myself, but I know Clone Wars was fantastic. A lot of great content in there. But it's nice to see that those kind of side stories are getting a real treatment,
as opposed to like,
well, it's just, I mean, I guess I like animated stuff, but it just attracts a different audience.
Mainstream treatment, and
it's hard to, most people will look at that and be like, this is a cartoon for kids kind of thing, right? But now you're
the original, it was not the Clone Wars, but Clone Wars, not the CG animated. Why does the meme always come up when I'm speaking?
It's so great.
Not the CG, but like the animated version. That one was so good, and it was had a slight bit of grit to it and a little bit of an edge to it, and it was so good, excellent.
Now you can read the meme.
I like the meme.
Yeah, so nobody cares.
So nobody does.
Yeah,
nobody at this table does.
To sum it up,
Just
no, it's ridiculous.
I guess that's it. Moving on
to more things that I can't pronounce, apparently. So we had a conversation about how the Vive, it's
the HTC Vive.
It's the HTC Vive, but the French in me just looks at some words, but it's not the French in me. Before we get started, because apparently this was not common knowledge to anyone that doesn't, troll the dank circles of the internet like I do. Mark jokingly put the subtitle of which VR headsets will porn adopt.
And I don't necessarily talk to these guys when I make up the slugs.
And I said, oh, well, I think it's already been decided, because Pornhub has sent thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of Google Cardboard, which is literally cardboard you stick your phone in for the true VR experience, and you wear it on your head, and you can watch specific porn.
So you stick your
VR
phone in the cardboard, though, right?
Well, I mean, otherwise VR. It would get soggy. But yeah, so you can sit in your home and furiously masturbate to yourself. Well, in the future, because this is the future, guys. We've made it. We can put cardboard on your head and watch porn.
But so does that make it a better experience where it's
really
recyclable
one of those things
or whatever? I don't know.
Well,
it comes from the earth.
But I guess that's not the true VR experience that we're actually talking about right now.
So my thought in putting up the which VR headsets will prawn adapt is the idea behind Betamax and VHS back in the day was Betamax lost because porn went to VHS essentially. And I think closer to home, you could say the same thing about Blu-ray and HD DVD.
Well, then eventually they basically killed Blu-ray because it's all streaming now, right? Like, so
I guess
I feel so sad saying that, sitting in front of these, like, you can't see because the camera's the wrong way, but there's literally like 700 DVDs in front of us. Amanda, yeah, if she had her way, we'd still have a VCR. So,
well, just wait till she gets a VR headset, and then she'll decide which one you want to use.
I guess so.
But no, honestly, I mean, that's a type of content that will be consumed.
So if that's the case, then let's just put it out there. Sony will lose.
Well, I don't know if they'll lose.
So Sony's would be the PlayStation VR. Is that what we're assuming?
Is that what it's called?
Morbius.
But I mean, it's going to be.
You connect it to your PlayStation. So it's like like half the cost of the other headsets, you do need to have a PlayStation in advance.
So we had
owning this headset.
an argument because I said it's not any cheaper. You still need a shitty PlayStation, and then you need all the other things because
But
you need
with any of the VR headsets, you need a
like
PC
It's not shitty.
or you need something to run it,
Yeah.
like with all of them.
And let's be realistic about PCs. You need not like a PC. You need a fucking behemoth of a PC
Yeah.
to play the shittiest games.
Whatever, as you should. You're going to be an early adopter or something like this. Yeah,
No kidding,
you're right.
No. I don't. I'm not mad about that, but I just want to
Spend
say
the money
that that's
now so I can spend less later.
But I mean, do I need to buy another graphics card specifically for this?
Yeah, and don't. And if you're actually serious about it, wait, because the current gen, like you have to basically top out like 970s, which would be like Nvidia's pretty much like high end card now.
Wow.
Are like getting it done. And if you look at the games that are out there, you're like, this looks like I went back in the Wayback Machine and now we're playing these games again. Like, okay, the games don't look good. I mean, to play an actual game and have a VR experience, and I guess actual game, but like what you would picture a game looking like now is almost impossible unless you're like hardcore into the scene. You're talking about like multiple graphics cards of the $800 range.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's not being programmed yet because it's not. So if one thing that I am excited for about the PlayStation 1, I think it will put some developers on it that are already have the ability to optimize, because
Right.
I think that's, getting it out there is one big thing, because it technically VR has been out for a while. I mean, the Oculus Rift has been around in a development kit stage for almost like 3 or 4 years now. And now they have a product that's ready.
Fun.
All right. So our video stopped. We're just going to keep going. And hopefully that's that.
We'll keep going.
All right. We're going to keep going. We may have to put some sort of other video up for the time being. But so basically, it's been out there for a while, but everything else looks kind of not fantastic, which is a bummer, but whatever. What you need is more people out there that are doing it, they're optimizing, and that's going to make it better. So I think the one thing that the PlayStation headset, I don't think it'll be the one that survives, just because I think you're right. It's whatever's willing to adopt porn. And I don't think Sony never has a history of doing that, so it won't be them. But at least in the gaming side, it will bring the quality to a more approachable level.
I don't know if we're at the point where we really have a format war, though, between the Oculus and the Vive or the PlayStation VR or what have you.
I don't know how much of it's
if this is a
format dependent, other than, I mean, I guess the Sony one is format dependent because it works on PlayStation. But
I still think someone is going to develop the penultimate version of this. Like, they're going to be the ones that everybody else chases after.
Apple.
I don't disagree with that, where one will win out, but I don't think it's like we're going to see like if you go with this, then you're essentially cutting yourself out of that or anything like that.
I don't think anything. Well, I think buying in now limits what will eventually be on the horizon, like another 2 years. But that's going to be the same for any kind of new technology. But I think it is a little bit different in that sense that there's
like,
not a format standard yet.
Were to go with the Oculus, other than like a paid exclusive that like HTC or I guess really Valve would lock into the Vive, I don't feel like you're going to really be missing out on much content right now, except for those paid exclusives. I feel like this is more of like a console war,
it's
more than anything else than a format war.
But I mean, does that factor into this too? I think it's the HTC one that's going to be shipping with an Xbox controller for now.
No,
and
the
then
Oculus,
it's going to be
the Oculus will be
Oculus
shipping with the
Xbox One controller,
yeah,
and then eventually its own. So obviously,
they should use the Steam controller. Just kidding. That thing is a piece of
the
shit.
HTC Vive comes with what I would call two wands or paddles or what have you.
What's
So it's
the
already
other
adapted
half
for
of this,
porn.
right? Like the idea that I have something on my face, but what about manipulators? What's going to be
They
the
both
standard?
have like I'm going to call them 3D controllers that can operate in free space. But the Oculus, for reasons they've decided, isn't going to come with them. I don't even know if they're available right now at this point. As for the HTC One, will be coming with that, plus the cameras that, so you can actually move around in 3D space as well. As to with the Oculus, I don't believe you can out of the box,
And I think that's going to be,
but it is capable though.
yeah, and maybe that's what will eventually drive the format, is like what these things are capable of. But I don't think that's proprietary in the sense that the controllers themselves
There's
would
nothing
be
necessarily proprietary.
to whoever's developing. But to say that one company can't make a different take on their, you put an extra doodad on it and it's a different controller, right? But yeah, I don't think. I don't think we're far enough
it's the content that's going to win this. I think it's very much the outside of gaming or outside of movie watching experience that's really going to win this. It's similar to the way the consoles are. It's going to be, who can get the exclusives, who can provide the better matchmaking experience, the better
and I think
friending experience.
It's getting over that uncanny valley kind of experience too, because there's no tactile feeling, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the first company that builds some sort of, it doesn't even have to be good, it just has to be serviceable, like tactile experience to it, will do very well gaming wise. I mean, it's not, I don't think that's important for movies or other things, and it's particularly important for porn. So whoever does
movies and multimedia could be what not necessarily wins one of these companies the format or console war, but it could help VR cross over into the mainstream. I don't believe it's going to be gaming. I believe that it's going to be those outside the box experiences, like being able to experience a concert when you're not really there, or
concerts are shitty.
Oh yeah, no, you're 100% correct.
Can I experience someone like pushing and shoving me and like smelling the stank?
If I can look over and see Taylor Swift on one side and Selena Gomez on the other, I'm going to be participating in that.
You could do that in a movie.
But think about paying, like, let's say a concert ticket is like $100 to be there live, or whatever, 150, 200. I don't know how much you pay for Taylor Swift. I really don't, but $200
you should know, Jeff,
to be front stage, or front stage. Is that a thing?
Center stage?
Center stage, right?
Good try.
Let's say you pay the same amount for basically to have a 360 view from that same spot. But it's just, you're not actually there. But you can spin around, you can look around, and you can stare right at Taylor Swift.
So I could go and stare at Taylor Swift, or I could go have my virtual reality experience where I could pretend I'm staring at Taylor Swift, but also turn around and not watch the concert at all. I don't know how much of a sell that really is, Jeff.
So the answer is Google Box, right?
But you're going to be there. But it puts you, as opposed to there's only so many of those tickets available, right? Center stage tickets,
right?
But there'd be an infinite amount, and maybe you don't do it live. Maybe it's something like a comedy tour, right? Like where they do the comedy tour, and then a year and a half later,
suck.
But just as my example,
Jeff clearly hasn't seen much live comedy in his life.
This is more of a distribution example, not the content. Please follow me.
You're hitting us where it hurts.
They do the tour, and then a year and a half later, they release the DVD. This could be something similar, where Taylor Swift does the tour, and then a year and a half later,
you imagine
she releases a live album or a live VR experience?
So could you imagine being the person that goes to see that Taylor Swift concert? You get your front stage ticket.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
And then you're the one that's stuck beside the fucking jackass that has to like operate the VR thing.
Yeah.
He's like right up in your face. Like, no, we want people to feel this. Like push me around. Like, yeah.
That's the future, buddy.
Fuck. That sounds terrible. Also, you missed the meme
the way
again.
I see it. Oh, fuck.
There's the meme.
Leave it to Butters.
Gotta love Butters.
I think Butters is the best part. I don't know. VR is like one of those things that I'm not. It's honestly like I had to go when you mentioned like, yeah, let's talk about VR. I'm like, yeah, VR is really cool to talk about, but nothing going on in VR right now excites me at all.
I don't think there's anything particular exciting except for the fact that it's here, though.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's real. Like we can't deny that it's very much real, and it's here. It's not going anywhere. This isn't a gimmicky thing. Well, this isn't like augmented reality on your 3DS or what have you. It's a real life product.
It's been here, but now it's actually, because that's the thing. Like I've followed the Rift for a while, and with I guess kind of,
but those were.
I'd like to see it, but
demos,
I don't really give a shit because it's one of those things. Like I'd look at it and be like, that's neat. I'm not interested at all because I'm not a game developer or anything like that. But yeah, I think it's a good it's a sign of things to come, and those things look promising. Just it's going to be weird for a while. Super weird.
I think you're weird.
Wow, that's cold. Well, the music's on. Jeff, I was going to say Jeff pointed at me, but Mark made the sound of a finger pointing, so that means it's time to go. So I'm Mike.
Jeff.
I'm Mark.
Thank you very much for listening to episode 7. I'm going to remember it's episode 8 next time. Wow. Have a good one.
See ya later.